everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising and Marketing Manager, and I get to be your host today. I want to thank our sponsor, the Weavers Guild of Nashville. What a wonderful guild, and we thank you so much for sponsoring our guest today. We will take questions at the end of the hour, the last 15 minutes. And as always, please put the questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. And sometimes we have great questions in the chat, but I can't see them unless they're in the Q&A. So please be sure you put those in there. Today, we have David Heustess. I'm so excited to have David here today. David is an artist and an art educator, and he's from Nashville, Tennessee. And his work makes the most of clay, fiber arts, and beadwork. After many years as working as a modern dancer / teacher, David began pursuing his interest in other mediums. He attended the Appalachian Center for Crafts in 1995. He earned a BFA degree in studio concentrations in clay and fiber arts. Currently, David directs the gallery space and a community art education program at the Surratt Art Studios at Vanderbilt University, which is also in Nashville. In fall 2021 will mark David's 25th year of working for Vanderbilt. David is a treasurer, I almost said treasure, and he is. David is the treasurer and membership director for the Handweavers Guild of Nashville and the director of exhibitions for the American Tapestry Alliance. Hi, David.
Hello, Kathy. How are you this afternoon?
I am good. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. And I'm blushing from being called a treasure.
You are, and I'm sure Nashville thinks the same thing.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
So, most important question.
Yes.
What is your favorite tea?
Aha. Sticking with my Southern traditions, my tea of choice is Deep Eddy's sweet tea vodka. But it's a little early in the afternoon here. So today, out of one of my favorite mugs from a pottery friend, I have a dirty chai.
Oh, really? I'm having chai. Mine's not dirty, though.
Chink, chink.
Chink, chink. There you go. So how did you get started in fiber? I've said some in the introduction, but what happened? How did you go there?
Well, it's kind of a little mystery in that I grew up in the textile industry. My father studied textiles at North Carolina State University.
Really?
Yes, after he served in the military. And so I grew up around the mills. And the last place that we ended up was Greensboro, North Carolina, where he was vice president somehow at Bluebell, which made Wrangler jeans. And my father also was part of the knitting world in the industry and helped develop double knit polyester, which some of us will remember from the 70s. But I didn't really pay too much attention until I went to the craft center. And at the time that I was there, you had to have 2 studio concentrations. So I knew clay was my first choice. And I looked around in the other studios. And the last place I visited was the fiber art studio where Beth Ann Knudsen was the fiber instructor, and her double weave, which I didn't know at the time, pickup work, very image-based, was hanging on her studio's walls. And I went, that is what I have to learn. And so that's where that journey began in 1992.
Isn't it funny that it could just be one thing that just takes you off into a direction?
Yes.
You know, that one piece.
And it's sort of that that little inner voice thing. And a little inner voice told me one day I needed to go back to school if I was going to stop dancing. And then that little inner voice said, oh, you need to learn how to do that. And that little inner voice has said that several times over these years.
Good voice.
Yeah.
So did you, what was your experience with clay? Did you do clay in high school or something? Or what was your first encounter?
No, I was dancing and teaching in Charlotte, North Carolina, and always wanted to sign up for a clay class, but I was always in rehearsal or class or teaching myself. And so when I came to Nashville in 1988, Donna Rizzo, one of the directors of the dance company here, was taking a pottery class. So when they asked me to stay on longer than the 6 weeks gig that I was signed up for, I said, I will do that as long as you make sure I get in a pottery class. So I started in a community ed program very similar to the one I'm running now. So this is a good start.
Well, as you mentioned, you were a dancer, and
Yeah.
we have an amazing image. I love this. First, you have to tell us about this image. And then my follow-up question to that would be, what do you think you brought to fiber from dancing?
Yes, that's a tricky one. So I'm going to talk about the image first. I wish I could say this was one of many photos that I have of myself in performance, but actually I don't have any of that because I was dancing before the years ago, way before cell phones and stuff. So this was a photo shoot that I did for a photographer who was working on a brochure for, I think, a paper company. And she really wanted this leaping or jumping figure with this shadow on the wall type thing. And it must have been 200 times of jumping this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was ridiculous. I know it was 3 or 4 hours in the studio just trying to capture this moment. And when I saw it, it just has always stuck with me. And it's been in a drawer for years up until about 5 years ago, maybe, and I pulled it back. But shadows, to me, are memories. And so I'm trying to work with that sort of sense of what I remember, what I think, what I feel, how I'm responding to things. And that's what this whole moment was about, I think, in some ways, or at least looking back on it now.
Yeah, I love the positive and negative spaces in this. It's just so powerful.
It's everything. And so in dance and theater, or at least in the ways that I worked, you might be the principal or the soloist in the evening's performance, but you've also been backstage painting the wall or putting the flooring down or sewing somebody's costume for them, which you never want me to do. So it's that sense of collaboration, I think, because the show doesn't go on. Just like I'm learning how many people are behind the scenes here at Tea and Textiles. Nothing goes on by itself. But as far as the dance, which is never going to go away from inside here, I still look at things as if I was watching a performance. What dancer catches my eye? Who has a certain sense of presence? And so when I look at, like, let's say my clay vessels, I want to see how they occupy space. And then what's different from a visual artist, but typical for a modern dancer, is that sometimes the space is shaping or manipulating you. And so some vessels look like they inhaled and are ready to move, which many of you might know from yoga practice. You inhale first and then move. And then others have exhaled, like that beaded vessel. Was probably towards the end of its exhale, if I look at it and think about it that way. I also talk about things more like a choreographer. And it was fun in school because somebody created a piece and I started talking about the diagonal line from the upper, what would be our upper left-hand corner, down to the lower right-hand corner. In dance, that's the march of the hero. And if you want to create empathy with your audience, or as the choreographer, if that's what you want the dancer to do, you move them on that line. So there are ways to get a message across or an emotion across just by the way you have someone move through space. So I look for that on the surface of fiber things or in the construction of 3D things. I hope that
That's
makes sense.
That's amazing. I've never heard that before. I will not look at artwork and especially fiber the same way again. I love that.
Yes. And I often walk in the studio when I'm working something, the studio at Vanderbilt, especially with the clay pieces. And if I walk in and I go, oh, who's making those? Then I know I'm onto something. So
Yep. I could see that.
yeah.
Well, these next images are of dancers, and they're just amazing. They're beautiful. And you use a technique called Shibori, and most people know what Shibori is, but would you just do a brief description of what is Shibori, and then what attracted you to this particular method?
Sure. So briefly, Shibori is the Japanese word for the technique of stitching, tying, knotting, folding, clamping, or anything else you can do to compress the fabric so that it resists and resists the dye during the dye process and creates a pattern, design, image, whatever it is that you're going for. It's actually known as other things all over the world. This folding, clamping, resist dyeing is everywhere, but we know it as Shibori because the Japanese excelled so much and did all those centuries of kimonos with Shibori techniques. I'm attracted, although I didn't think I would be at first, to the stitch work and the knotting techniques more than I am the pole wrapping or the folding and clamping. And that's because I wanted to get these figures onto the fabric. Did that?
I'm just sitting here looking at this because I am not a Shibori artist by any means, but I've taken a couple of Shibori classes, and I was just looking at that going, I know what's involved in making that. And I could just sit and watch you do this for days to see how you make it so realistic looking, because any Shibori I've ever done has been kind of free form. Oh yeah, I meant it to look that way kind of thing. So that's why I was kind of staring at it like, how do you do that?
Yes.
Now you used Indigo. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I learned, this was part of what I learned in school. And so it was a extra class. Heather Allen, who I think has gotten married now and has a different last name, was our fiber artist in resident. And so I kind of just took the class because it was very different from what else we were doing in the curriculum. And we used to joke that I was the Betsy Ross of the needleworking thing. And I really just feel very klutzy, clumsy at it. But the next thing I knew, people were complimenting me on my tiny little stitch work. And I was like, oh, okay then. So yeah, it just has kind of stuck unexpectedly.
Well, that's funny you mentioned Heather, because she was on here a few weeks ago.
Did I'm going to go back and watch.
Yeah, you have to go back and watch it. And it was the same thing though. I didn't know Heather Allen was the same person as Heather. I always pronounce her name wrong. Haitala. She's changed her name. I didn't realize it was the same person. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about the Indigo. Yes. Those pieces were Indigo, and Indigo is just so powerful in the contrast and everything. But what was it about Indigo that really attracted you? And do you do other dyeing besides Indigo?
Yes. So the two are separate things. But the Indigo, because of the nature of it being the nature of it as a dye, it's a layering process as opposed to being absorbed by the fabric. So it's a perfect complement to the stitch work. And for me, besides the fact that I really love the deep dark blues that you can get, it eliminates a little bit of the, I wonder if this is going to work kind of thing. So the the surprise moments when I open it up are sometimes where I maybe didn't pull or tie something as tight as I thought I did. But it's just that whole, it's different from other dyes. It relies on oxygen as you bring it up out of the vat to bond to the fabric and turn blue. And it's like watching a Polaroid develop before your very eyes, because you see it go yellow and then green and then to a shade of blue, depending upon the strength of your indigo vat. And I find it a very meditative process. So I have nicknamed my indigo vat after the oracle in Fraggle Rock, the trash heap, because indigo vats are smelly. But I sometimes ask myself a question or two during the dyeing process and see what the answer will be. So it's kind of fun that way. And then I also like the surprise look on my students' face when they see it happen the first time. So
Indigo's like magic.
it is magic. It could be magic, yes. Wonderful stuff. But I have tried and of course work with, there are walnut trees growing right behind the building where I work. So I have those readily available any time of the year to work with. So I've done some Shibori with the indigo. I've done it with some of the Procyon dyes. And then I combine, sometimes the fabric's dyed with Procyon dyes and then tied and then dipped into the indigo. So it just depends. Yeah, it's pretty versatile. Little wonderful plant that it is.
Now, we also have images of your tapestry work, that you also do a Tapestry Diary. And how did you get started in tapestry? And do you weave on this diary every day, or how does that work for you?
Well, I did fall in love with double weave pickup when I was in school. And I do have an 8 harness Leclerc floor loom, but in my studio space at home, that would eat up half the room. So I was like, well, what else could I start doing? I wanted to start weaving again. And tapestry looms can be quite simple and don't take up a lot of space, and they come in different sizes. So I started to teach myself, and almost about the same time, I took a workshop with Tommy Scanlon. I believe it was in Florida. And so I kind of started falling in love more with this technique just by watching her. If you ever get a chance to watch Tommy just weave, you'll learn so much from her. And so I like the pickup feeling of working with the warps. I don't use the shuttle or heddle type things or the leashes and all that. And Tommy introduced me to, or the class to, the Tapestry Diary idea. And so I came home and warped one in December, started weaving on January. This is for 2020. And this mandala was the end of the tapestry. So this picture is while it was in progress. And a mandala just felt like a good way to end 2020 after everything that we'd been through. So it started as a simple exercise of just seeing what shapes or color combinations might play with, and then it progressed into more of this diary thing. I'd love to tell you that I weave for hours every single day, but that's just not really true. But another artist taught me that if I just walk in the studio and look at what's going on in progress, I've done some work that day. So yeah, I can at least do that much, but I try to get in about 20 minutes every morning on a tapestry piece.
Well, it's interesting that you have all these modalities that you are involved in. You do clay, you do bead, you do tapestry, you can do regular loom. How do you decide which modality to go with? Is it like, okay, I want to make this, and then you decide which loom, or do you just get the thing like, I really want to do tapestry, I think I'll make something on that?
It depends. Sometimes it's like having a craving.
Oh,
I love a piece of chocolate cake right now, but that will be ugly on Zoom. So, so there is sometimes that feeling of I've just got to get my hands on these materials. But typically it is, I spend a lot of time thinking about ideas. And when I think it was about 5, maybe 6 years ago, I realized that everything I was doing in school at 1995 when I graduated was still interesting to me. So the vessel on the right is clay, and I've just worked really hard and diligently every day on throwing large amphora based ideas. They didn't always turn out to be a classical amphora with 2 handles and a skinny neck, but I could work on 5 or 6 at a time, and through the course of a week, and maybe 3 or 4 of those would survive the whole process. The next thing I knew, I had 20, and I was able to apply for an exhibit at our Arts at the Airport here in Nashville. So it was fun to see those all grouped together. The vessel or the object on the left, I had the pleasure of hosting and being a part of a 6 months residency with David Chat. He came to Nashville once or twice a month for a weekend with a group of us and taught us about everything he could about right angle bead weaving. I was very slow to learn some of this and get things going, but once I got into the groove or rhythm of it, it became another satisfying thing. And the nice thing about beadwork is you can travel with it, but clay work you can't. So it sometimes depends upon what my schedule is like. I can also do the beadwork at home. And not the clay work. I'm sitting in a 10 by 13 room. That's my studio. So beads fit in real nicely. Shibori fits in nicely here, the tapestry, but the clay it stays over at Vanderbilt.
well, I'm going to shift a little bit here. I read on your website, you said that people will ask you, how long does it take to complete a work? And we've all heard that. How long does it take you to weave that? How long does it make you to have to take that to make clay or whatever? And one of the things you said is that you told them, I don't know, I just work until the piece is done or finished. And what struck me was, I always think about the question I ask people from time to time is, do you think of your work more in terms of the process or the product?
Right. If you and I were having a consultation about your artwork and how to price it, we would look at the actual hours that you have your hands on the materials and things. You'd have to clock, and I can do that. I think why I answer I don't know is that, especially with the fiber arts, things will sit and wait for you. So if I only have 20 minutes a day or 3 hours on the weekend, the time that I have my hands on the material is so far apart. Sometimes I don't remember where I put the little diary list about my hours with it. But I know it's not anything too ridiculous. But I also answer that question, especially to students, in that I don't really want them to think that my timing is their timing. I want them to figure out their rhythm or their way of working themselves, if that makes sense. I have other stories that could back it up if you're interested. But sometimes we're told things. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you, I was told in school by my clay instructor that you should be able to fully lift a cylinder and get all the clay from the wheel to the top of the cylinder in 3 lifts. And that turned out to be ridiculous. I eventually got there, but who cared how many times it took you to lift a cylinder out of 2 pounds of clay or whatever? 5 lifts are just as fine too. So you do what you got to do in the timing that you have to do. I forget the rest of the question.
I was wondering if you're more concerned about the process or the product.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I usually tell most of my classes, I do have some product oriented things because people like to go home and go, look at the scarf we all made. Yeah, I even when we do something that turns out to be a scarf or is designed as a scarf class, it is about the process. How do you go from step A to step B to step C? And did you leave with enough knowledge and a good handout to do this some more if you're really interested in it?
Mm-hmm.
And with some things like weaving or throwing a pot on the wheel, you're not going to get it in the first 10 weeks of classes. It takes years of practice to get some of these things going in between your mind, your hand, your heart. Those things have to come together. So it takes a little time to learn them. So process, yes, please.
Well, I love how you talk about the teaching, because I always think it's interesting to hear from artists how teaching impacts them as an artist. You know, do you think it changed you? Does it change you? Continually to change you?
It does in a way, and it teaching I've been doing it for a number of years, but after I got out of art school, I did get really interested in how do we learn and how do we teach, and teaching is an art and a science all combined together, just like what we're doing, most of us, with our artwork. So I studied education at Belmont for a year. And that gave me a lot of insight to myself as a learner. And it also gave me insight to how other people learn, and that I can't expect everyone to learn the same way. So some people need step-by-step, concrete, sequenced instructions. Other people will go off on a tangent and a roller coaster ride, like I like to do, and land safely. And there are times when a student has started or worked on a project and I went, "Ooh, that's a really good idea." And I said, "Can I steal that from you?" And then move on and make it something of my own. So, and it's reciprocal because they're learning from me, they're sharing with me. And I just try to create as safe and enjoyable of an environment as I can, because we're all trying something new and different, usually when we walk into, especially a beginning class. I love a beginning level class. And so, yeah, we're on a journey together for however long whether it's 2-day workshop or a 10-week or however long they want to spend time with me. So, yeah.
Have you seen that book, Steal Like an Artist?
I think I just downloaded it on my Audible.
Yeah,
book.
it's exactly what you're saying, is that we build on.
Yeah, because I never worry about, you're supposed to not share or teach the things you're not ready to give away yet in your own studio practice. But I've also realized my hands are different from your hands, and your hands are different from the person sitting next to you. So if we're all working with the same materials, and I see this over and over again, we're all going to come up with something different.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's just so many different variables in it. And eventually you learn how to make things maybe recognizable as your own. So yeah, you figure things out and don't have to worry about it from there.
This next piece we're going to look at is a very powerful piece on many levels. And at times you use the theme of social and political issues in your work, such as this one, this tapestry, which is titled "I Can't Breathe." Why do you pull in social issues? And then how do you choose which ones? How do you find they strike you that you want to pursue that?
Oh, I I don't think I set out with my artwork like other artists do to be political or make social statements. But I do, when I think about this question, I do realize that I might be a little more in tune with that type of thing. So I'll talk about this first. This is still part of that Tapestry Diary from 2020 that had the mandala on the top. And so just underneath I Can't Breathe is my attempt at weaving a coronavirus. So as we all went into lockdown because the plague came, that's all we were hearing about was the coronavirus. So it's like, I'm so tired of hearing about it, and yet it's still intriguing and different and odd thing that we're all going through that I had to try to weave one. And then at the time of George Floyd's murder, what you were hearing over and over again on the news was "I can't breathe," and that started to become like a mantra in my brain. And as a modern dancer who was taught to inhale and then move on the exhale, and then I also studied yoga, both as a student and a teacher, just the idea that someone can't breathe is shocking, surprising to me. And of course, we all got to witness this horrific murder, and wondering what was going to happen because of it, and all. So within the Tapestry Diary, I found a place to put this phrase, hopefully get it out of my head, and also just explore, if we come back to sort of a studio practice, can I weave a text or words on a tapestry loom? And I also left the slits in there on purpose, just maybe to like, well, here's a way, open up the space so that that air can flow through here. So this was not a very big section of the Tapestry Diary, but I think maybe the most emotionally exhausting part of it. And then you can see the dancer above there. So again, the question of, can I weave a figure? And this one is upright, not on the side, and which made it a little tricky. But it was also just to celebrate not only George Floyd's life, but all of our lives as we were going through countless numbers of people dying from coronavirus and these different murders that were happening around the country. Just needed a moment to celebrate. So I tried to work it as colorful as I could, and jumping in the air always was a great feeling. So just brought that in there too. But this was all for me. I never really set out to share this as, here's my political statement or here's my social statement, but I do see how it does make that too. So
I'm so glad you explained about the slits. It really makes the piece that much more powerful. I had no idea what they were. That really changed, at least for me, it changes how I view that work.
Yeah, I think it's something that I'll pull out in 10 years or every time I pull it out, I might learn something new from it myself. And like I said, I make these things in large part for me. So it's what I want to do. It's what I wanted to make. It's how I wanted to spend my time. It's me. It's a me thing. So it's very nice to be able to get them out and share them in a format like this. So I do appreciate that.
Well, my background is art as an art therapist. So when I'm looking at people's work, I try to think, what is the connection? And I was curious that because you do so much work with beading, you do clay, and you do the fiber. And I was like, what is the connection? And it dawned on me is that all of those artworks are very tactile. And in art therapy, we look at, is there a distance between the person's hand and the modality you're working with? Like clay is in there, you know, you're really into it. Finger painting, you're really into it. Whereas painting or pencil, there's some distance there. And I thought about that. Your three modalities that I'm aware of are very much tactile. You're in there working with the materials on all three of those. Do you think that, was that a conscious thing? Do you think that's something that is important for you, that you feel the materials?
I do like the feel of clay. I like the plasticity of it. I like with right angle bead weaving, you can make it like a fabric so that it drapes and folds and covers, but you can also make it sturdy and stand up on its own. And I forgot to mention what the first vessel, beaded vessel that you showed was actually from one of Wendy Ellsworth's many, I don't even know what to call them now. I just went blank. But she's created so many projects, I guess that involve that. But that came from, and I'm sidetracking a minute, that came from misreading her really well-written directions. And when I realized what I had done, I went back and made a note at the point where I made the mistake and said, continue to do this mistake, and wrote out what it was, so that I got those bumpy, lumpy things and stuff. I often tell people, we'll have one kind of conversation with a cup of tea, or over dinner or whatever. But if I really want to get to know you and I really want to give you the opportunity to open up, maybe even to yourself, I'll hand you a ball of clay. And within a few minutes, some guard has dropped, or some tensions from the day have gone away, or whatever it was, and your mind just starts to focus on that thing that you have in your hand. And it takes a few minutes to get there, just like any other kind of meditation or conversation or relaxation thing. But it does open you up to things. And the next thing you know, your focus, your attention is just on what's in your hands and how it's feeling, and everything else goes away. And I believe also in the happy mistake, like I was just talking about, and I can't tell you the number of mistakes that I make in everything that I do. But I was taught, like, if students will come to me with a pot that's gotten a chip or a break on one part, and I'm like, well, one break is, and it's still greenware, so they can do something to it. I said, one break or one popped warp loom is a mistake and will be real obvious. But 3 broken places or 5 popped warp looms will become an intention. And so I'm a big fan of the happy accident, which I usually have to tell people, if something's going to go wrong during this class or workshop, it's going to be because I make so many mistakes. But I've learned how to correct or work with those happy accidents and found other ways or new things to doing everything. But I think in anything that we're doing with art, whether it's making it ourselves, teaching it to others, or just giving people the opportunity to view artwork in an exhibit, we're doing something to help them through whatever it is, or give them the opportunity to relax and just enjoy the experience.
You could be a very good art therapist, I could tell.
You know, I thought about it, but gosh, going back to school again.
Yeah, I know.
Like 5 times. Well, I was in a art group thing where we had to introduce ourselves to each other by what kind of headline would be written about you. And my headline was, after 20 years of school, David Heustess earns a BFA degree finally. So
Professional students. We all
Yes.
want to be professional students.
Yes, I considered it. And that's why I love working at the university, not only because it's a community-based program, so I don't have to worry about some of the restrictions of grading or taking attendance and stuff, but also just have always appreciated the generosity that a university provides to artists. And Vanderbilt's the first place I ever heard of artists talking about their artwork as research. So
Really? I've not heard that either.
so I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come to this meeting. I'm researching. So no, I don't.
Well, would you talk more about that program at Vandy?
Sure.
It's wonderful. I've never heard of a program like this before.
There's not quite the community ed maybe at most colleges or universities. There's sometimes like the open studio where anything can happen, but typically you have to be enrolled in an academic art class. Surratt Art Studios started in the mid-70s as a non-credit art program for students. And the building has a gallery. It used to have a dance program, a cinema series, a film series, all kinds of things. So luckily this program has survived over the years. I started teaching part-time in 1996. And even as just a part-time instructor, it was like, the doors are open to you, come in, use it anytime you want to, help yourself to any of the materials that you need. I was just like, blown away. It was the biggest gift that anybody could give an artist. And people will maybe hate me for saying this, but I've never had to pay studio rent for 25 years now. I just celebrated 25 years at the university this past fall. So we offer, before the plague, we were offering 30 non-credit art classes.
Wow.
Everything from beginning watercolor to pottery on the wheel to darkroom photography to drawing, all types of things, jewelry, fused glass. And it's been Candyland for me because as the director, when I became the director of the program, I became the marketer, the website designer, the lead instructor, the studio manager, the guy that mops, well, I don't have to mop the floor, but who cleans up after all those hats. So I got to sit in on all these great classes and learned all these different techniques as well. What's been interesting is now reopening, and we focused back, we became small again. So we're only available to the Vanderbilt community. We reopened with just me teaching 2 or 3 classes to 6 students at a time, and then expanded a little bit more, and we'll expand a little bit more there. And so I started directing that program in 2003. And then a few years, I added the gallery to my, brought the gallery under my umbrella there, and use it as a way to support some of the classes that we're teaching, as well as to work with local and regional and national artists with their artwork. And so we just closed Susan Iverson's Color of No at that gallery. Yeah, so I was happy to have 43 of her hand-woven tapestry in that series. So it's been exciting. Lots of different people that I've gotten to meet, whether they're teaching art classes or exhibiting or just taking classes. It's been an amazing opportunity there. And hopefully I do 25 more years. We'll see.
Well, I just love it because Vanderbilt is known as such a strong academic school. You know, you got to work hard, you study hard, you know, you can go to med school, you can go to law school, whatever. And I just love the message that the university gives is that art is important too, even if it's not your major.
Yes.
You know, I love that. That's wonderful.
Yes, it's been
good on you, Vandy.
Yes, it's a great thing for Vanderbilt. And it's a great thing for the students. And it's fun to see these different people from different departments and different walks of life and everything just come into these. There's only 3 rooms to Surround Art Studios as far as dedicated art space. And yeah, I mean, one summer I had all the doctoral students from the science department take a pottery class. And, you know, so you become a part of their little world, so to speak. Or you have people from all over come together to create a class, and you just see the influence or the time. It's just incredible. I don't know that I really have words for that whole experience, other than I feel privileged to be able to be a part of all of that and everything. And I do realize that it's a privilege to have an art program like this.
Well, I got one more question for you, then we're going to go to questions that people are entering.
I could talk to you all day.
I know, and I could listen all day. I love this. What is next for you now? I know you're going to be at Convergence this summer, correct?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes, I signed up to be a vendor at Convergence. I am excited about this opportunity. It's a brand new little thing for me to do in selling yarns. I'm dyeing yarns and winding warps and painting them and putting together little Shibori kits and things like that. So so it's interesting. It's a different way for me to approach the public with things in this kind of way. And I also, since I'm going to be in Knoxville and started exploring this series of Tapestry Diaries is based on wedge weave, as well as what I see in the world. So I signed up for Connie Lippert, did I say
Lippert,
it right?
yeah.
Lippert, whose work I've been admiring for a couple of years now. So I signed up for her workshop. So that's exciting. And then I've been waiting since May of 2020 to go to Peru and study with Maximo Laura. Yes.
Are you really?
Oh, it's gonna happen this fall. So yeah, I'm gonna get the art program started in September, just after Labor Day, and make sure everything's rocking and rolling then. And I get on the plane, I think September 18th, and fly to Lima. I'm going to spend a few days up in Cusco, and then I love this. The workshop is actually taking place in an area called the Sacred Valley, and I can't wait to see. I've been to sacred places and ruins and stuff in other parts of the world, but I'm going to be somewhere sacred for 10 days. It's just amazing.
Do you need somebody to like carry your bags or something? I mean,
you know, I am traveling alone for this, so if you have
which is probably not a good idea.
Well, and as you get to know me, yes, he should not be out on the streets by himself, but because he's lost his way. Has anyone found David? But there's, I think, maybe 30 people from around the world going to this workshop. So, and several of us have been in contact since 2020 when we were first going. So I know to say, I'm going to meet with Arlen Asbeck, I hope I said her name right, somewhere along this journey before the workshop happens and all. So I'm very excited about that.
Good for you. I
love being a student as well. So I'm excited to learn some things. And then
we'll have to have you back so you can just tell us about Peru.
Actually, because of the university, the Center for Latin American Studies at Vanderbilt's helping to fund part of my trip.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
I do have to put a program together for them.
Well, let HGA know. We'll help publicize.
So there'll be pictures and slides and things about nice. The whole thing. Yeah. And there's such a rich textile community there that I'm hoping to just meet some of the vendors or artisans in the marketplace in Cusco and everything. So
all right, well, let's take some questions real quick.
Let's see what people want to know.
I know one question now, because I was going to ask it before we got started, and I thought I might as well wait. Everybody wants to know about the picture behind you.
That one?
Yes.
Yes. That's one of the, well, you see two Shibori pieces. So the the smaller one, I don't know which side of it, I'm not in front of it. That's a modern dancer leaping in the air in what in classical ballet would have been a pas de chat. And it just creates an energy of whoosh up there. This other figure, she is, my height. The whole thing is, well, no, she's propped up. She's about 5 feet tall.
Wow.
Or the piece of fabric is. And so I found this image of a dancer. I think she was from the Paul Taylor Dance Company. I decided to just give her a little sense of space. And she was in some kind of twisted or twirling kind of movement, so her hair was flying. So I get the shadow effect with the elongated arm and the shortening of another. And then when I saw the piece after it was dyed, I spent some time thinking, what else did it need? And after listening to Nick DeFord and Renna Wood talk about their embroidery, especially Renna saying she just follows a line as she's embroidering, I was like, I can follow a line. I can create lines. And so I just used embroidery to start to create an atmosphere there with them. So I learned over the years that scale is real important, whether it fits in the palm of my hand. The amphora vessels, I use my body. So from my hips to my head, or from my knee to my neck, whatever it is, I measure yarn or fabrics the biblical way, I guess, of your nose to your fingertips and stuff. I never met a ruler that I liked, quoting Nancy Crow, and nor have I ever really met a straight line that I like. So I like the curves and the different shapes that come in to play with this and everything. These I have, I'm celebrating my 25th year at Vanderbilt by having an exhibit in the gallery this summer with Shibori, the clay vessels and the beaded vessels out in the gallery. So I'm very interested to see them all in the same, share the same space together and see what happens.
I'll have to get that information, get it on our calendar. I want to make sure we
Please come up because I might throw a party.
Well, we have a question from
especially if you come up.
All right.
And
If
Mandy
I
and
must.
Elizabeth.
We have a question from Judy Anderson, and Judy's been making comments along the way. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Judy. I love Judy. We've known each other for decades now.
She wants to know, do you draw your image on the cloth prior to stitching the shibori?
Yes, I have to. Have to have some kind of line to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So I take an image, I work it through Photoshop to a place that I know that I need it. I shrink it in Photoshop, and then I blow it up with a projector, old school type projector, onto the fabric, trace the outline, but I don't put anything else there. So because then it's filling in the contour lines is my job after that.
Do you show that or do that during workshops?
I can, but like I said, I love a good beginner's class.
Oh, okay.
So taking on something this scale and going through all that's not quite the beginner. But someone once asked me, what's intermediate shibori? And I was like, there's no such thing. Because I didn't have
one
any
to the other.
for it. Now I know better. There are intermediate and advanced level shibori classes and things that you can do. So yeah.
Well, Debbie Bailey has a question that I think she's asking about maybe a book. She says, do you have a catalog of stitches and other techniques and the results they produce? Do you have a resource that you go to?
The resource originally was Heather Allen's handouts from what was considered the Shibori Bible at the time. I think I have a copy of it, but I'm bad with names sometimes. And then I was teaching this workshop at the Appalachian Center for Crafts, and Vicki Vipperman and Teresa Hayes, who are friends of mine, were in the workshop. And Teresa pulled out Jane Calendar's Stitch Shibori book, and she says, have you seen this book, David? And I went, what the blankety blank? That is the book that I meant to write. And so I thought I was annoyed maybe at first, and then I looked through it and I was like, God, this is really good. So those two Bibles, Jane Calendar's Stitch Shibori, and then one of the original Shibori books. I think Heather's teacher from her MFA program was part of that book or something.
Now, is Calendar's book still available?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and Jane is teaching online classes.
Okay.
Not that she asked me to plug her workshops, but I did do one for 6 weeks, and it's fun. It's interesting, and there were people from all over the world as part of that Zoom workshop. So, yeah. But I think that almost anything that you can figure out how to stitch, whether by hand or machine, is going to work its way into resisting. When I do indigo dye and I show it for the first time, just leaving my thumb in the corner of the piece of fabric through the whole dyeing process is enough to get people to realize, oh, whenever something is touching the fabric, it's going to resist the dye.
Oh, that would be neat to see that. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I could do a whole piece with my thumbprints.
Mary Warren wants to know, do you ever combine weaving and clay work?
Not yet.
I love yet.
Yeah, I kind of kept everything separate. Not really quite sure. I have some clay vessels that I pit fired in sawdust. So they are waiting to be beaded.
Okay.
And then I have, Cassie Dixon did a presentation for our guild, and that picture of the cocoons sitting in the little cardboard tubes has sparked an idea. I don't know whether that's going to be double weave and clay or double weave and felted. Yeah, but there's I've never done an installation piece, and this one is brewing, and I might need some double weavers to help me.
Again, you heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
Once again, Textiles and Tea brings you the greatest unlearned.
Yes, I need some collaborators.
There you go.
Possibly. Yes.
You're going to see this new work. David, I can't believe it. We got to stop.
Do we really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bummer.
Can we do part 2?
Yeah, we'll do part 2. Y'all go away. David and I are going to keep talking.
No, we're just rescheduled. No, I'm teasing.
Thank you so much for being on here today. You have been wonderful.
Thank you, Kathy. You and Mandy and Elizabeth have been great. I know there are other people behind the scenes, and I appreciate, all 5 people who zoomed in today for this. I appreciate you being. I have no idea who we're talking to or anything.
You got a cheering section going on here.
I appreciate that so much, and I do thank you for this opportunity. This has been tremendous fun, and
we were so tickled to have you here.
And now I'm going to go find where I hid my sweet tea vodka and celebrate my afternoon with you.
Go ahead.
Right.
I may have to go invest in some of that. It sounds great.
Really?
Now, if you want to learn more about David, go to his website, and it's davidheustess.com. And if you're interested in having him come teach, you can contact him there. Look for him at Convergence. He's going to be in the vendor hall. And if you're in the class with him, be sure you say, hey, you'll be there. Thank you so much, David. We do appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We want to thank our sponsor. It is the Handweavers Guild of Nashville. David's own home guild. We appreciate them kind of stepping up and supporting the Textiles and Tea programs. If you would like to sponsor Textiles and Tea, you too can do that. Your business, your guild. Just go to our website, weavespindye.org, and you can get more information about becoming a sponsor. Oh, and I also wanted to mention it's I'm sorry, I'm jumping back here. It's follow the Spiral Studios. That's his Instagram and Facebook page. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here, but I wanted y'all to know about that too. Check out his Instagram. It's wonderful. You see great pictures of his dog. So if you like this kind of programming, you want to see more programming, we've done some great programming from Spinning and Weaving Week to more about guilds. Please join or donate. Donations help these programs happen. We need that little extra money to get these extra programs going. So if you're interested in joining or donating, please go to weavespendie.org and you can do both there. If you missed any episodes, you can see those on Facebook. You can also watch them on YouTube. And I encourage you to sign up for YouTube, open an account there, because if you do, then they will send you a notice that when a new YouTube has been uploaded. They take a little longer for us to get them up. Convergence is coming. If you haven't heard yet, David's going to be there. If you want to be part of Convergence and not just attend it, come join us. We're looking for people to help us with putting up the galleries, putting it down, walking around the gallery. What a better way to spend an hour or two is just to walk around the galleries. If you want to help in the vendor hall, registration, we have tons of ways that you can be part of Convergence and not just attend. You can go online and sign up, or you can contact us. We're glad to get you hooked up and going at Convergence. We also want to talk about Spinning and Weaving Week. I know it's hard to believe that we're talking about it now because it's in October, but we are looking for people who want to participate. We're looking for thread talks, Marketplace Live. We're looking for vendors who want to be part of it. Don't forget, we're going to have the fashion show, so be working on something there. We're going to do studio tours. You never can know who's going to show up for a studio tour. And then something new we're doing this year is called Art Sparks. And that will be little mini classes, anywhere from a half an hour on, that you will either actually make something or learn about a class. And we're real excited. That's going to be new this year. So we're looking for people who want to be teachers, who want to be speakers, and we're looking for vendors. So if you're interested in any of that, please come to our website or give us a call and we'll get you going there. Like I said, we've got all these new things coming up. You can sign up for any of those at weavespendie.org. Next week, we have Mary Berry. We're excited to have her come join us. Thank you all for joining us today. It was such a nice afternoon. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.